Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name is Franchise Fanatic and welcome back to the channel. And today for you guys, this is another movie review. Today we're tackling Evil Dead 2, the sequel to The Evil Dead. My first review for The Evil Dead came out on Halloween. You probably have seen it. It has over 100 views, not a lot, but a lot for me, I guess. So yeah, if you're interested in that and you haven't seen it, go check that out. But yeah, so The Evil Dead, or I guess Evil Dead 2, this one here, I got this one on Blu-ray. The first one, if you remember, if you've seen my first review, I got The Evil Dead 1 on DVD to kind of simulate like an older style look to it, but I got Evil Dead 2 on Blu-ray here. I just, I had to. I mean, this one's, what is it, 1987, so we're kind of reaching HD, I guess-ish. Not really, but yeah, so I got it on Blu-ray. And this is kind of where a lot of people get confused, right? I kind of talked about it in my first review. But essentially, The Evil Dead 1 ends, right? Leave a like and subscribe, thanks. The Evil Dead 1 ends with Ash, a Deadite attacking Ash, and he's screaming, he's like, oh, fudge! And then, boom, cut to black. And then this movie opens with a recap of the first film. Now you're probably thinking, wait a minute, why did Ash leave the cabin and then come back to the cabin with another girl named Linda? What is he? Is he stupid? Like the Arkham memes? No. So basically what ended up happening in real life, not in movie canon, but in our reality, is Sam Raimi, Rob Tapert, Bruce Campbell, all the producers and directors and writers and whatnot, they didn't have access legally to that first film's rights. So what they did is they reshot for about 10 or so minutes, they reshot essentially like a very quick TV episode recap of the first film. And it's completely batshit insane because it makes no sense, and all it did was divide and confuse idiots online. So yeah, basically, if you really kind of want to talk about it, Bruce Campbell even mentioned this in an interview, is that, the Deadite attacks Ash, and the camera goes up to his mouth, and then it ends. This film, right after the recap, kind of, literally begins with Ash flying in the air and then hitting a tree and becoming a Deadite, right, at night or whatever. So yeah, I mean, this film literally takes place a millisecond after the first one ends. You can skip the recap, because, especially if you've seen it before, you know what to expect. So, skip that and boom, you're right in the film. Now, this film is technically still a horror film, okay? But this is where Sam Raimi kind of went, oh, I like the Three Stooges, and I like slapstick comedy, and I like to bully Bruce, and my brother Ted. So he's like, hey, let's just effing make this one a horror comedy. Kind of hearkening back to like the 50s and the 60s where like, they kind of meshed horror with comedy. It was really shit and cheesy back then. I wasn't around then, but we go to Disney World, Hollywood Studios. They have a restaurant called Sci-Fi, and you basically, like you sit in a little car and you watch these little cheesy movies, real like clips from movies, and I mean they're horrible, but back in the day it was like, oh, this is crazy, you know what I mean? In 2024, even this looks kind of janky, but that's the point, But yeah, so basically what you get is a horror comedy, and literally it picks off right after Evil Dead 1, where Ash is getting thrown in the air, he hits a tree, becomes a Deadite, and basically Ash's mind deteriorates, right? Like he starts to lose his effing mind, and they kind of play on that in really unique ways and funny ways as well. I wouldn't call this like outright comedy. I mean, it's a very distinct version of comedy. If you love the Three Stooges, just a bunch of old guys, boom, boom, making these weird noises, and why did I do that? Making these weird noises and just all this random shit. It's not like, I know comedy's subjective, but it's not comedy that you're like accustomed to in modern film, I guess. It's more like classical comedy in a weird way. Of course, it is rated R and it's extremely gory and graphic. Maybe not as bad as the first one, not even close. But, it still is not like a family-friendly comedy. Like it's still horror. But again, I think Sam and Bruce, they really kind of nailed that bridge, between the two. Because, for every scene where Ash is screaming in pain and there's a blood geyser and Henrietta's in the frickin' basement, chowing down on the frickin' hillbilly redneck dude, you get these scenes where Bruce has to, chainsaw his effing right arm off, blood spraying his face and all that, but you also get funny scenes where his hand it comes alive, and it's like, walking on the floor, and it's giving him the middle finger, and it's like a little mouse, like he's like, hits a little mouse trap and freaks out, shit like that, what I mean? It's stuff that is funny, but it's not like laugh out loud funny, but it's kind of comical and like an old, again, like Three Stooges / Tom and Jerry kind of vibe, what I mean, where it's like just Tom beating the crap out of Jerry with a mallet, what I mean, that kind of thing, and it works, for what this universe is and what they're trying to do. It really works. And obviously, if you've seen Evil Dead, you know that the first one is genuine horror, or at least it tries to be, which I think it pretty much achieves. And then this one, and of course when we get to Army of Darkness, that's when it really just becomes a flat-out action comedy, right? Like, Army of Darkness really is not even a horror movie. And this is kind of the beginning of it. Now, I'm not saying that, Evil Dead is, better as straight horror or better as straight comedy. But I think it really kind of hits that middle ground where it works as a really graphic horror film. But it also works, and we'll get to it with Army of Darkness, but, it also works, especially in this case, as a mix of horror and comedy. And I think that's kind of where the Deadites really like to F with Ash, mentally, is they have, like, Linda's, naked body, just like, but it's stop motion. And it's like, dancing in the woods and stuff, or like, really, really clever camera tricks where, like, Linda's head falls on Ash's lap as he's sitting in a chair, and they built, like, a really intensive rig, like Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit style. Really cool stuff like that. You've got the, well, Linda, again, she busts into the shed or whatever with the chainsaw, and it's just a dude on his freaking back, with a little thingy, and it's just attacking Ash. But then you have, where Ash is like, obviously you can tell it's a double, but Ash is looking into a mirror, right, and like bad Ash, I guess, or like, just a weird Deadite version of him kind of like grabs him through the mirror, and stuff like that, and like it cuts, and you think it's the other person grabbing him, and it's just Ash grabbing himself. There's some really, really good and clever camera tricks that Sam pulls off here. Maybe not as like, crazy, wow, he doesn't have that holy shit effect as the Evil Dead 1, because that was the first one. It kind of, built upon the foundation, but they still do a really good job of kind of, making the camera angles really kind of eerie in a way, like when they're all kind of pressing up against the door, and like the cab is just making these weird noises and everyone's freaking out. Good stuff. You also get, of course, the, what is it, the other characters with Bobby Joe and I saw this like a week ago, I'm sorry. The fat redneck guy. The girl that is good in it. I don't know her name. But she's actually like a really good actress in this. Like Bruce Campbell is, not, I don't want to say bad, I don't want to say good, but he's kind of like, they call him a B-movie actor, even though this is not a B-movie franchise. It's like it's a well-known, like, AAA horror movie, you know what I mean? I don't really know why they call him B-movie actor. Maybe because he's a little cheesy. I don't know. But she's a good actor. The girl in it. I completely have to... Fuck, I gotta Google this. I'm sorry. But yeah, she really does a good job of kind of making the world and this, universe feel more alive in really fun ways. And she's like a good actor in it. Like she's not like cheesy or over the top, stuff like that. She really does a good job of kind of making this a believable world. And I think that's what's actually really cool about it. So Evil Dead 2, what's her name? Bobby Joe, Linda, Ted Raimi. Her name's not even in the effing cast list. Jesus Christ. I don't know. Fuck it. I give up. I give up. I googled the cast. She's not there. So, I guess she's just in my imagination. But the character does a good job, right? Like, you know who I'm talking about. She dies in the end, right? She gets stabbed by the hand, and yeah, the Kandarian dagger. And it really does, kind of portray her as smart, right? Like when she gets off the plane and she kind of looks at the the sky and all that, you can tell that this is a character that knows what's up. Obviously, when you find out that her parents, her mom and dad, kind of. Her dad basically went to this cabin to study this, the Necronomicon, and stuff literally went sideways. And he had to, completely dismember his wife, which we find out to be Henrietta, who attacks Ash, which is Sam Raimi in a fat woman suit. I think it's like it's good world / lore building. You know what I mean? It really does kind of. It's not just Ash in this cabin anymore. It's these other outside forces kind of coming to the cabin and seeing what's going on. Obviously, with Army of Darkness and the Ash vs. Evil Dead show, which we'll review that season by season, and then Evil Dead 2013, Evil Dead Rise, From Hell, which we just established is also part of the Evil Dead canon as well, which I still have to get that one on Blu-ray. It obviously goes beyond the cabin, but I think they do a really good job of kind of showing that, yeah, we're still in this cabin, but we're making it new and fresh, and we have these new characters. And yeah, there's a few moments where I was really glad where that redneck dude died when Henrietta grabbed him in the cellar, because he's annoying. But he's supposed to be annoying. Him screeching and screaming, "Bobby Joe!" in the woods. That's like, he's a hillbilly redneck. Like, straight up. Like, I don't know if that's how they all act, but that's the stereotype, right? They got the overalls, and they're they're all hippies and all that. You know how it is. Bobby Joe, kind of same thing. Even though she's kind of hot, she's just, I guess that's how they're portrayed as well. She's spitting gum out and all that. I mean, just kind of hillbillies. The only person that knows what the hell's going on is Ash and this other chick that isn't named in the cast. And I think she does a really good job of kind of, you know, grounding these characters. And yeah, you know, they still die in horrific ways. They don't do the tree rape this time. They do, I mean, Bobby Joe still gets jacked up with the vines, but she kind of goes like, boom! She kind of like shoots like a rocket right straight into a tree. We don't see her get hit, but they do a really good quick cut where, like, you know, they drop the frame, the you know, picture frame or whatnot. You know, so there's some good editing and stuff in there as well. And of course the effects are great. The story is really good. Again, like I said, it builds on the first, having literally happened a millisecond after the first one ends. But you get more characters and more lore, and you know, you get Henrietta, and you get the ending, which was completely insane. Like, this has to be, I don't know when Empire Strikes Back came out, but this has to be one of the craziest twists in cinema ever. Like, I'm not just saying that because I like Evil Dead. Like, this is straight up, like, objectively, this is effing crazy. Like, you literally have, you know, the uncasted, uncredited woman telling Ash, hey, my dad found these other pages, right? And we kind of have this more full look at the Necronomicon. And it says, kind of like Anakin, right? Like this prophecy that we're going to get some guy with a chainsaw and a shotgun to kind of save the world. And Ash is like, that's stupid. And then he literally opens a portal and travels back to 1300 AD, complete with the car. And, you know, that's cluing the audience in that, oh, the prophesized hero is Ash from another time. And he goes back to that time. And the movie ends with one of the craziest cliffhangers ever. And I think it's really, really well done that it's not just, oh, you know, there's Deadites and demons in a cabin and there's gore. Like, Evil Dead is not, that's not what it is. That's part of it. But there's an actual storyline and real world building and lore, and it's really, really crazy. Of course, you find out that Ash did not burn the Necronomicon in the first film, even though he threw it in the fire, right? I think they even mentioned it in the show. I've seen the whole show at least once so far, but, you know, I'm going to rewatch it, obviously. They mentioned that, you know, oh, you can't really burn the book. It has to be destroyed, like, sacrificially or something. And I think that's really cool. Again, there's more world building to this than one would think from just seeing the first one, like, oh, gross zombies. You know, like, it's really a well thought out franchise. And this movie really kind of nailed that, you know, when people think of Ash Williams, they don't really think of Evil Dead 1 where he's just kind of standing there like a coward. They think of this one where he hits the ground and he's looking at the deer head and everything's laughing and he's losing his mind. That type of thing. And that obviously is a coping mechanism for Ash. It's a character, right? He's literally losing his freaking mind. And yeah, it's funny for us, and you know, he's smashing plates on his head and he's doing flips in the kitchen, but that is simulating, you know, him going insane. And I think it's really, really smart how they handled that. Obviously, you get, you know, the gore and the comedy and all that, but again, they really, really tried to make it a little different than the first one by adding that lore and world building, and it really, really, I think, works out. Again, clocking it at 84 minutes, it flew by. I know I watched it a week ago, but it flew by for sure. I mean, it's really, I don't want to say brisk or fast-paced, but it doesn't feel like it drags. I think the pacing's really good. I love the effects, you know, stop motion. I think, you know, yeah, obviously it's cheesy. Everything stop motion is cheesy. It's stop motion. But it, you know, it lends itself to that creepy Deadite, you know, vibe, which they kind of want to do. You know, obviously each book, the 3 books, each book is a little bit different, and this book is very, you know, hell-bent, so to speak, on you know, mental manipulation. And yeah, it kills you, and there's gore and blood, but it really tries to get in your head. And, you know, it's little things like, you know, the uncredited chick being like, oh, my mom's in the cellar! And Ash is like, it ain't her. You know, so that shows character progression. I mean, there's some really good lines in there, too. Really good stuff. Obviously, you know, the gigantic effing tree with a face in the end, and Ash stabbing it in the eye, and, like, purple goo comes out. Or Ash hits the uncredited girl. She has, like, a buddy with her. And Ash, like, you know, obviously hacks him to pieces with the axe, but it's, like, green blood. In real life, they did that to not get an NC-17 rating, but also in the lore, you know, when the Deadites exploded in the end of Evil Dead 1, right, you saw, like, grits and mashed potatoes coming out of their sleeve and shit. Like, it's not just blood, you know what I mean? They mentally screw with you to creep you out with green blood, or red, or blue, or purple, or mashed potatoes, or whatever, oatmeal, or whatever. You know, that's how they roll, and I think that's really, really smart. They're not just, you know, demons who want to kill you. They do, but they also have this other motive, which I think is really interesting. So, overall, man, Evil Dead 2 is a freaking blast. I think they really nailed the horror and the comedy. Obviously, you know, it is dated, but I think none of the effects are outright bad. And if anything, the cheesy effect of it kind of adds to the uncanniness and the creepiness that the Deadites kind of, you know, want to give off. And I think they really nailed that you know, that aspect. Some of the characters, like I said, the guy is a bit annoying. I think there's a lot of screaming that he does. You know, obviously some people find screaming incredibly funny. It does work sometimes, but, you know, there's 1 or 2 moments where You know, I think it drags a little bit too long. So, you know, there's a few jokes that don't land, and there's a few things I would have changed a little bit. But I think the editing, the sound design, the music even, I think, you know, the recap is a little bit more convoluted and confusing than I think they wanted it to be. I don't even think you need an effing recap. You know, like when you watch Force Awakens and Last Jedi, there's not like a 10-minute recap of The Force Awakens, you know. Or when you watch Lord of the Rings 1 and 2, there's not like a 10-minute recap of what happened in Fellowship. Like, no, we're not stupid, okay? We remember things, okay? We're not dumb. So I think that's a little bit weird. I know TV shows do it, but in movies I don't think should do that. So that was kind of weird. But overall, I think that they really nailed that aspect of, again, getting horror and comedy. Most of the times that doesn't work, and it's either too scary or too funny. And this one isn't nearly as scary or as unnerving as the first one, but I think they still kind of hit that in a really fun way. And obviously with Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 3, that'll be the next video, obviously, but they really kind of went crazy with the comedy on that one, and we'll get to it. But overall, man, Evil Dead 2 is a freaking blast. I loved it. Again, a few pacing issues. Some of the characters are a bit annoying. I know it's done on purpose, but annoying is still annoying. But it is fun, and I really do enjoy it, and I think it is a hallmark in horror for sure. You know, when most people think of Evil Dead, they think of Evil Dead 2 for a reason. It's a pretty good movie. So I'm going to give Evil Dead 2, let's see, I'll probably give it an A-. I think it's a really fun time. And, you know, upon rewatch, it holds up. Basically, you know, it captures that magic that did the first time I saw it, and I think it's a really fun time. So tell me down below in the comments what you think about Evil Dead 2. Again, we're going to be reviewing Army of Darkness very soon, and then, you know, obviously a bit of a break so I can watch, you know, Ash vs. Evil Dead, and we'll cover it season by season. You know, with homework and all that, obviously I'm not going to bore you with that, but I do have a lot of lesson plans and stuff to do, so I wish I could just watch movies and TV shows all day, but you know, that's life. But yeah, I know I will be getting these out as soon as I can, so thank you guys for watching and for supporting me. Again, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. I can't wait to talk about Army of Darkness. Stay groovy, and we'll see you guys in the next video.